Black Myth Wukong is not only an incredible game, but also serves as a sequel to the original Journey to the West story. As such, the game is filled with references and reincorporated characters from that story, and while this is a ton of fun for Monkey King fans, players who haven't read those books can easily end up confused. So we're gonna go over the mythical origins of these bosses so people can have a better idea as to what's going on in this game and just how well researched all of it is. We're primarily going to be focusing on the bosses who are connected to the original novel, seeing as this game also features some completely original characters with their own in-game lore. Oh, and I should probably let you know that this video is actually sponsored by Black Myth Wukong! Yeah, how cool is that? This is honestly the easiest sponsorship I've ever taken because I truly adore this game. It lives up to all the hype it built up over the years, the gameplay is a ton of fun, and the passion that went into its design is something truly special. It has quickly become one of my favorite games, so go check it out if you haven't already. Definitely deserved its Game of the Year nomination. Let's start with a very brief summary of what Journey to the West is actually about. It begins with a monkey being magically born from a stone, and then rising to become the king of his fellow monkeys. He then decides he wants to be more than that, so he trains with a Taoist master, takes on the name Sun Wukong, steals a magical staff from the Dragon King, and acquires several types of immortality. But when the gods refuse to take him seriously, he goes on a mischievous rampage for which he is imprisoned for centuries, until he is allowed to redeem himself by going on a journey where he must escort a monk named Tang San Zhang, who is transporting 3 divine scrolls to the west, aka Journey to the West. He eventually succeeds and finds enlightenment. Got it? Great, on to the game. Black Myth Wukong's prologue has a grand total of 1 boss, Erlang Shen. You see, back when the Monkey King was a total troublemaker, he at one point went to war with the entire army of the heavens. Very ambitious monkey. During the battle, the ruler of heaven, named the Jade Emperor, called on his nephew Erlang Shen to defeat Sun Wukong. Erlang Shen was the god of justice, warriors, water, hunting, etc. He wields a spear and a sword, has a third eye that allows him to see the truth, and also has a pet dog that helps him when he hunts demons. All of these attributes are shown in the game. He is also said to have 6 elite allies whom he refers to as his brothers. Some stories have described these brothers as humanoid, while others have associated them with animals. These brothers also appear in the game as animal-human hybrids that guide us to certain objectives, and also are sometimes boss fights. Wukong and Erlang battled for some time, they both transformed several times, and at one point they both transformed into gigantic monsters. But they seem to be evenly matched. Eventually, Wukong just decides to peace out, turns into a bird and flies away. But Erlang does the same thing, chases after him, and because of his truth-seeing third eye, he constantly sees through Wukong's disguises and does eventually capture him. What's funny is centuries later, during Wukong's journey for redemption, Erlang would end up helping Wukong during one of his battles, and the two would reconcile their differences and actually become friends. There is also a story where Erlang's mother is imprisoned in a mountain, and he uses a gigantic axe to literally split the mountain and save her. That very axe makes an appearance in his boss fight. Chapter 1 of the game focuses primarily on the tale of Elder Jinchi and the Black-Winged Bear Demon. You see, during their journey, Wukong and Tang San Zhang came upon a temple of monks led by a 270-year-old abbot named Elder Jinchi. Jinchi welcomed them to spend the night at his temple as guests, and during so, he asked them if they had any impressive treasures to show off. For you see, Jinchi was himself an avid collector of precious things, particularly cassocks or kasaya, which are special robes worn by certain monks. Now, Tang San Zhang had no interest in showing off, but Sun Wukong, being a bit arrogant, stated that they had actually been gifted a special cassock by the gods for their journey, and insisted that it be shown. The cassock was more gorgeous than anything Jinchi had seen before, and later in the night, he expressed to his followers how much he wished to keep it. One of the monks, whose name was literally Great Knowledge, suggested that they kill the travelers in their sleep and thus keep the cassock for themselves. I personally wouldn't consider that a very knowledgeable suggestion, but whatever. Another monk named Great Schemer suggested they could do so by setting the traveler's room on fire. Thus, even if they survived, they could claim the cassock had been burned. These two monks are apparently the two lesser bosses in Chapter 1, named Guangzi and Guangmo, with Guangzi's in-game lore specifying that his name means Great Wisdom. When the monks attempted to burn the part of the temple where Tang was sleeping, Wukong took notice of what was happening and literally flew into the heavens to retrieve a special cover that would protect his master from the fire. He then used his wind powers to scatter the fire throughout the rest of the temple and burn it all. When Elder Jinshi saw that his greed had cost him everything, he took his own life by smashing his head against the wall. When we encounter Jinshi in the game, he has been revived as a golden demon, most likely a reference to his obsession with treasures. He stands in the burned remains of his temple, surrounded by reanimated corpses of his former followers. His face remains scarred and blinded from when he smashed it, and he laments his losses before, during, and after the boss fight. The morning after Wukong saved his master's life, they discovered that the cassock had still somehow gone missing. Believing only a Yao Guai could have acquired it and escaped the fire, Wukong asked the remaining monks if there were any Yao Guai in the area, and the monks revealed that there was indeed a powerful bear demon at the nearby Black Wind Mountain. You see, this bear demon was actually an old friend of Elder Jinshi, and it would later be revealed that the bear saw the temple in flames and rushed over to try to help. But when he came to the temple, he saw the heavenly cassock and, consumed by greed, simply took it and left without helping anyone. Man, that cassock is really giving some heavy Lord of the Rings vibes, huh? So Wukong went to Black Wind Mountain, and when he arrived, he overheard a conversation between three individuals. They were a dark-skinned man, a white-robed scholar, and a Taoist. The dark-skinned man was in the middle of bragging about how his birthday celebration would be happening soon, and he would be showing off the most incredible cassock he had ever come upon. Wukong, of course, realized that this was the man who had stolen from him and charged the three men, bringing his staff down on the head of the white-robed scholar, killing him instantly. The other two men escaped, but in death, the white-robed scholar's true form was revealed to be a large, white-spotted snake. This character also appears as a boss fight in Chapter 1, though based on his dialogue, he also seems to be one of Erlang Shen's brothers, so it's possible two different characters were merged together here. Wukong followed the dark-skinned man to his cave and demanded he return the cassock. The man came out wearing impressive armor and wielding a lance with black tassels, revealing himself to be the Black Wind Bear Demon in human form. He and Wukong argued for a bit, then proceeded to fight for half a day until the bear said, I kid you not, that he was hungry and wanted a lunch break. Yeah, seriously. Wukong thought that was ridiculous, but the bear retreated to his cave and locked the door behind him. Wukong then tried to deceive the bear by taking the form of Jinshi, but the bear saw through this deception. They would later fight again, but the bear would once again request they stop because it was getting late. Wukong again refused, but the bear transformed himself into wind, and Wukong was no longer able to fight him. Needing a new strategy, Wukong went to the heavens and enlisted the help of Guan Yin, the bodhisattva and goddess of compassion and mercy. By the way, bodhisattva is a Chinese term for enlightened beings. When Wukong and Guan Yin returned to the mountain, they came upon the very Taoist who had escaped Wukong earlier, and the Monkey King wasted no time in killing him instantly. In death, the Taoist's true form was revealed to be a gray wolf. Now, a gray wolf named Lingzhuzi does appear as one of the bosses in this chapter. However, according to the in-game lore, this wolf is actually successor to a previous gray wolf of the same name. And that wolf is seen hanging from a tree after the Elder Jinshi boss fight, apparently having taken his own life. So it stands to reason that the hanging wolf is the Taoist from the novel, and the wolf boss fight is an original character following in his footsteps. After killing him, Wukong and Guan Yin discover that the Taoist was transporting magical pills to the Black Wind Bear, and Wukong comes up with a bit of a scheme. Sometime later, the Taoist arrives at Black Wind Bear's party and presents the pills. But after the bear swallows one, the pill turns out to be Sun Wukong in disguise, who then takes his true form and starts beating the crap out of the bear from the inside. The Taoist then reveals himself to be Guan Yin in disguise, who retrieves the stolen cassock and places a subduing headband on the bear while Wukong is beating him up. The headband forces the bear to obey Guan Yin's commands. Wukong wants the bear dead, but Guan Yin, being merciful, decides to enlist him as the guardian of her own mountain temple, and that is where his story ends in the novel. In the game, we encounter the Black Wind Demon, both in human form and bear form, at the very Guan Yin temple he was tasked with protecting. He wields his signature lance and often transforms into wind, much like in the novel. He also offers to put his binding headband back on after he is defeated, indicating that he somehow got it off between the novel and the game. The game even shows a gorgeous animated telling of Jinchi's friendship with the bear, his rising in the ranks of the monks, his love for cassocks, and his unfortunate descent. Chapter 2 takes place at Yellow Wind Ridge. When Wukong and his group came to this area, an extremely powerful whirlwind appeared. Wukong took a moment to smell it, however that works, and commented that the wind smelled like a tiger. No sooner had he finished that statement when a powerful tiger suddenly appeared before them, identifying himself as the vanguard of the ruler of the area known as Yellow Wind Sage. The Tiger Vanguard then stated that he was here to find travelers that he could feed to his master, and attacked the heroes, but was quickly fought off by a member of the group named Zubaji, who we'll talk more about later. Wukong and Zubaji tried to finish off the tiger, but he evaded them by tearing off his own hide and transforming into a gust of wind. In this form, he was able to grab Tang Sanzang and carry him away to his master. As the tiger and Yellow Wind Sage conspired to devour the monk, Wukong and Zubaji tracked them down and demanded his release. The tiger decided he wanted to eat Sun Wukong as well and challenged him to a fight. Unfortunately for him, though, Wukong won the fight, and as the Tiger Vanguard attempted to run away, he was cut off by Zubaji, who dealt the killing blow. Wukong dragged the tiger's lifeless body to the cave entrance in order to try to provoke the Yellow Wind Sage, and it worked. Enraged, the sage donned his armor, grabbed a steel trident, and emerged to face the Monkey King. The two of them battled for over a day. Wukong used a special technique where he removed several of his hairs and transformed them into over 100 clones of himself, but Yellow Wind Sage countered it by summoning the Samadhi Wind, a wind so powerful it shook all of Earth and Heaven. Wukong and all of his clones were blown away by it. The next day, Wukong transformed himself into a mosquito in order to spy on the sage, and in doing so, overheard that only the Bodhisattva Lingji can overcome the Samadhi Wind. Wukong was overjoyed at this discovery, and very quickly tracked down and enlisted the help of Lingji. When Wukong fought the Yellow Wind Sage again, Lingji used a special staff to summon forth a dragon that beat down the sage until he returned to his true form, a mink with yellow fur. The Bodhisattva then told Wukong that this sage had once been an ambitious rodent who was given a chance to become something more, but because of his recent crimes, he must now be judged. Wukong thanked Lingji and finally freed Tang Sanzang. Lingji, the Yellow Wind Sage, and the Tiger Vanguard all appear in Chapter 2, though there are actually 3 tiger bosses, so I guess I should clarify. This one is the Vanguard from the novel, and these 2 are supposed to be his sons. Got it? Good. The Bodhisattva was also said to possess a wind-stopping pearl, which could be the same anti-wind item that we acquire by completing the secret area. Plus, there is a staff you can obtain in the game that summons a dragon during certain attacks. Unfortunately for Lingji, the game's lore says that Yellow Wind Sage managed to trick the Bodhisattva and take his head to amass even more power than before, which leads to his boss fight. Chapter 3 of the game is a continuation of the story of Yellowbrow, a story which began when the travelers came to a place called the Small Thunderclap Monastery. Upon entering the temple, it was filled with thousands of holy followers, all being led by a great Buddha known as Tathagata. Seeing this, every member of the party knelt or bowed in respect, except for Sun Wukong, for you see, Wukong had a special pair of red eyes that allowed him to see the true nature of things, similar to Erlang Shen's ability. In fact, these very eyes are utilized in the prison section of Chapter 3 in the game. Wukong saw that the inhabitants were actually demons and fiends in disguise, and the supposed Buddha was truly a monster king named Yellowbrow. When Wukong called this out, Yellowbrow magically imprisoned Wukong in a pair of golden symbols while his followers overwhelmed and captured the rest of the group. You may remember these as the same symbols used to imprison Zubashi in the game. Wukong tried everything he could think of to escape the symbols, but failed again and again. Eventually he got desperate and cast a spell summoning dozens of gods and guardians to help, but even they couldn't free him. When word of this reached the Jade Emperor, he sent the 28 constellation deities to help, and after even more failed attempts, one of them finally managed to stick their horn between the symbols and allow Wukong to escape. When Yellowbrow discovered that he had been freed, he fought Wukong viciously using a wolf teeth club, which is a type of mace. The many other deities surrounded Yellowbrow, and yet he didn't seem worried at all. He suddenly pulled a small bag from his waist and threw it into the air, which then proceeded to swallow up all of the deities and Wukong, imprisoning him yet again. Yellowbrow then transferred them all to yet another prison within his temple. However, Wukong escaped this prison much more easily by simply changing his form to slip out of his restraints. Guess Yellowbrow didn't know he could do that. After freeing the others, Wukong transformed into a bat, which also happens in Chapter 3, and searched the temple for Tang Sonzang's belongings. Unfortunately, he was unable to retrieve them before Yellowbrow wakes up and discovers all his prisoners have escaped. His army of demons battle with the dozens of deities for a very long time, until Yellowbrow gets tired and just uses his bag to capture everyone yet again. Only this time, Wukong avoids it. In need of some new non-bagged allies, Wukong left and requested aid from a noble celestial known as Zen Wu, who agreed to help by sending his turtle and serpent generals along with 5 divine dragons. They launched another attack on Yellowbrow, who simply used his bag to capture them. Oh, you gotta be kidding me. So, Wukong went off and enlisted even more help, this time from a bodhisattva's disciple named Prince Little Zhang, who wielded a white lance and had 4 divine warriors in his service. They agree to help, and because it worked so well the last 3 times, they launch another attack on Yellowbrow, who, get this, imprisons them in his bag. Wukong manages to avoid it again, but now he's all out of ideas and begins to grieve his failure, until a new figure suddenly descends toward him on a cloud. The figure was a true Buddha named Maitreya, who revealed that Yellowbrow was a former disciple of his who had betrayed him and stolen his treasures, which included the bag, the mace, and the symbols. Maitreya then offered to help Wukong defeat him. Sometime later, Wukong challenged Yellowbrow to another battle, during which he lured Yellowbrow to a melon field and disappeared. Yellowbrow then decided he wanted to eat a melon, so the melon farmer presented him with one. But once he opened his mouth to eat it, the melon was revealed to be Sun Wukong in disguise, who jumped down Yellowbrow's throat and began beating him up from the inside. Yeah, a lot like what happened with the black bear. The melon farmer was then revealed to be Maitreya in disguise, who used the distraction to take Yellowbrow's bag and imprison him in it this time. After that, all the other prisoners were finally freed. Black Myth Wukong does something very interesting in the game by giving Yellowbrow a story where his deceitful nature is fully realized. He impersonates a Buddha yet again, but this time starts an entire false religion around it, literally preaching the exact opposite of what religions usually preach.
Why then do we tower, whilst others merely kneel and offer? He asked. I told him the others are less than us.
His domain is a new Thunderclap temple, and 4 of his minions serve as dark versions of the 4 Journey to the West characters. You see, non-white reflects the White Dragon Horse, non-able reflects Zubashi, whose name sometimes means aware of ability, non-pure reflects Shabu Jing, whose name means aware of purity, and non-void reflects Sun Wukong, whose name means awakened to void or emptiness. Yellowbrow also has his mace and bag, though the bag is not nearly as annoying in the game as it is in the novel. Maitreya shows up in the chapter along with his melon field serving as the chapter's secret area. The way he inscribes the spell on the Destined One's hand is likely a direct reference to the fact that he inscribed a spell on Wukong's hand in the novel, which is what enchanted Yellowbrow to chase Wukong into an obvious trap. Fun fact, the reason Maitreya is 9 years old in the game is because the actor who played him in the 1986 series passed away 9 years ago, and this character is meant to be his reincarnation, which is very sweet. We also encounter the Turtle General, though unfortunately it turns out the Snake General has been killed between the events of the novel and the game. Prince Littlezang is very clearly meant to be the third prince who we meet in the prison. His warriors are obviously the 4 corrupted captains who are put to rest in the side quest he gives us, and the weapon we receive is his white lance. There is also a line in the novel where the prince states that his father was the king of a land called Flowing Sand, which would directly connect him to the Rat King from Chapter 2. By the way, the King Jinlong and King Jin Star bosses are actually the same character, in case you didn't know. Kang is one of the 28 Chinese constellation deities that I mentioned earlier. These deities each represent a different body part of one of the 4 legendary beasts: Azure Dragon, White Tiger, Black Tortoise, and Vermilion Bird. Kang in particular represents the neck of the Azure Dragon, which is likely why she has a dragon form in the game. She is also the very deity who freed Sun Wukong from the symbols, which is why her horn is able to open it again in the game. The only weird thing being that the novel seems to refer to this deity as male. Not sure what's up with that. The Macaque King is a former ally of Sun Wukong. You see, back in his early days, Wukong started a little fraternity known as the Seven Sages. These sages were the most powerful animal kings, including Sun Wukong, Bull Demon, Macaque Demon, Lion Demon, Bird Demon, Dragon Demon, and Marmoset Demon. The most famous of these is the Bull Demon, and we'll talk way more about him later. Finally, the Zodiac deities we encounter in this game, the Dragon, Tiger, Monkey, and Dog, are 4 of the 12 Chinese zodiac animals. These animals received their positions long ago when the Jade Emperor conducted a great race which all of these animals competed in. The results decided which order they would be in the Chinese zodiac, which you've all heard of. Like, it's what decides what year animal you are depending on what year you were born in. If you're wondering why the rat is first in that order, it's because he totally cheated and rode on the ox for the entire race until he jumps in front at the finish line. I do hope we eventually see the rest of the 12 deities in like a future game or something. The 4th chapter mainly involves the Spider Sisters. However, Zubaji is also technically a boss here, so I think it's about time we went over his story. Originally, he was a high-ranking member of the Celestial Court named Tian Peng. However, he had a pretty big drinking problem, and one night he started drunkenly hitting on the moon goddess Chang'e, even when she repeatedly rejected him. For this, the Jade Emperor cast him down to Earth, and he was reborn as a pig man. He spent years on Earth living as a bitter creature and even eating human flesh, until the goddess Guan Yin came to him and told him there was a chance for redemption if he would become a vegetarian and join Tang Sanzang on the journey to the west. The pig agreed and became a very valuable member of the team, taking on the new name Zubaji. Zubaji wields a divine rake and has the ability to shapeshift, which is showcased multiple times in the game. Now on to the spiders. At another point of their journey, the travelers saw a nearby household and Tang Sanzang insisted he go to it and ask its residents for food. His companions offered to go instead, but for some reason he insisted that he do it. Guess he forgot how often he gets captured. When he reached the house, he found 7 women who invited him inside for food. However, the food they brought was actually putrid human remains, and when Tang refused to eat it, the women pinned him down and tied him to a crossbeam. When Tang did not return, Wukong asked a local spirit about the household. The spirit informed Wukong that the women who lived there were actually monsters, and so Wukong transformed himself into a fly and flew into their estate. He saw the women leaving their home and overheard that they planned to eat Tang Sanzang after bathing in a nearby hot spring. Also, fun fact, the hot spring they used apparently used to be one of the 9 suns that were shot out of the sky by the god Hu Yi, which is a whole nother story. Wukong could have easily killed them while they were bathing, but decided against it, believing that killing women would be bad for his reputation. So instead, he stole their clothes, thinking that they wouldn't be willing to leave the pool in the nude. And he was right. Zubaji thought it was foolish to leave them alive, and so he went to the spring himself. Though when he got there, he couldn't resist taunting the women and jumping into the pool with them. The sisters tried to attack him in the water, but Zubaji took the form of a fish and easily avoided their moves. When he was finished having fun and announced he was now going to kill them, the women were too scared to care about shame anymore and leapt out in the nude. They shot Zubaji with webbing from their navels and ran away while he was subdued. The women then summoned 7 other insects whom they had captured and recruited over the years: a bee, a hornet, a cockroach, a cantharsis, a grasshopper, a maggot, and a dragonfly, and sent them after the heroes. During the fight, the 7 insects multiplied into thousands of insects, but Wukong countered them by plucking his hairs and transforming those hairs into 7 species of hawks, who were the insects' natural predators, and soon the bugs were eliminated. The women were nowhere to be seen at that point, so the heroes freed their master and continued on their journey until they came to the home of a kind Taoist who invited them inside. However, the Taoist was apparently an old friend and sworn brother to those sisters, who it turned out were currently hiding in another part of his house. When the sisters told him what had happened, he decided to take revenge on the travelers by making a poison from the dung of all mountain birds, which he had for some reason. When he gave the poison tea to the travelers, Wukong was perceptive and did not drink it right away, but the other 3 did and fainted from its effects. Wukong then attacked the Taoist in anger, but the Taoist fought back using a treasure sword. The sisters joined the fight, and Wukong decided it would be best to retreat and gather some more info, and then the sisters created a wall of webbing around the estate to prevent him from returning. Wukong spoke to that same spirit he spoke to before, and now the spirit told him that those sisters were actually spiders in their true forms, which delighted Wukong, as he did not consider a bunch of spiders to be much of a threat. He then created 70 clones of himself who used their staffs to roll up that webbing wall, and then very quickly overwhelmed the sisters, who were now in their true spider forms. Wukong offered to release the sisters in exchange for the safe return of his allies, but the Taoist refused, stating that he really wanted to eat Tang San Zeng in order to absorb his divine essence. Furious, Wukong smashed all 7 spiders and fought the Taoist again. During the fight, the Taoist removed his robe to reveal 1,000 eyes on his body that emitted golden beams. The beams were hot, blinding, and over 10 miles long. They were too much for Wukong, so he took the form of an anteater and burrowed 20 miles away. As luck would have it, he immediately ran into a woman whose husband had apparently been murdered by the Taoist. She instructed Wukong to go to Purple Cloud Mountain for help, though it would later be revealed that the widow was actually a bodhisattva known as the Old Dame of Li Mountain, who disguised herself as a grieving widow in order to discreetly help Wukong. This woman is definitely that snake woman from Chapter 4's Secret Area, seeing as that woman was also pretending to be a grieving widow.
Husband! Oh dear, husband!
And even directly says she came from Mount Li. At Purple Cloud Mountain, Wukong met a Buddha named Prolamba, who offered her aid. When she was told of the Taoist's eyes, she simply pulled out a magic needle which launched itself toward the Taoist and blinded him. Ouch. She then provided Wukong with antidotes to save his friends and forced the Taoist to reveal his true form, a gigantic centipede. Prolamba decided to take him as a guard for her own cave entrance, and that's where that story ends. The game makes a significant change to this tale, where Zubaji actually has a love story with one of the spiders and spares her from the deaths that befell her sisters. Most of the spiders we encounter in Chapter 4 are actually that spider's daughters. While this is very different from the novel, it's also a story that the majority of players really seem to love, so you'll get no complaints about that from me. The novel also states that the home of the sisters led into a cave system, while the Taoist lived in a very flowery area, and both of those things are accurately shown in the game, along with the Taoist sword, centipede form, thousand eyes, and the very needle that weakens him. The secret area in Chapter 4 takes place at Purple Cloud Mountain, and revolves around the tale of the Scorpion Demoness. The Scorpion was an evil woman who attacked the travelers during their journey and kidnapped Tang San Zeng, as all demons seem to do. She took the monk back to her cave and immediately began attempting to seduce him and convince him to marry her, but he consistently refused. Wukong and Zubaji caught up and fought to free their master, but the demoness eventually stung Wukong right on his head, and her venom caused him such immense pain that he was forced to retreat. They would later attack again, only to have her sting Zubaji on the mouth, forcing another retreat. It was then that Guan Yin appeared and advised the heroes to enlist the aid of the great Star Lord Orionis, who was another one of the 28 constellation deities. Specifically, he represented the hairy head of the White Tiger. Fortunately, Orionis agreed to help without question. When the third battle with the Demoness began, Orionis took his true form, an enormous rooster, and crowed 3 times. The first crow revealed her true scorpion form, the second crow paralyzed her, and the third killed her. The Scorpion Lord we encounter in the game is actually not the Demoness from the novel. According to the game's lore, he was her mate, who is now mourning her death at the hands of the rooster. The rooster Orionis also appears as a boss fight, having been tragically killed and brought back as an insidious monster, now known as the Duskvale. There is even an optional boss encounter where the Scorpion Lord aids you in fighting the Duskvale in order to avenge his love, but ends up ironically dying to the same crow that killed her.
Forget about his crowing!
The rooster was also the son of the Buddha Pralamba, who used his eyes to create her needle, which is why the old dame uses the Duskvale's eye area to empower it. From how the dame talks about Pralamba, it sounds like she's somehow been killed, and many players have theorized that the Buddha's right-hand boss was actually created from Pralamba's right hand. Also, since we fight the last dragon side boss here, let's go ahead and explain who these dragons actually are. The 4 optional dragon bosses are children of the Dragon King of Jing River. The Dragon King made a bet with a fortune teller regarding what the weather would be like the next day. However, Dragon Kings can manipulate the weather, and the Dragon King abused this ability to win the bet, which resulted in the Jade Emperor ordering his execution. This event is what the dialogue that plays when you get near the dragons is referring to. The dragon actually had 9 sons, but they do include the 4 titles of dragon in this game. By the way, the fortune teller is definitely that man with the gourd we encounter throughout the game. Chapter 5 is where we come face to face with Red Boy and Bull Demon, 2 of Wukong's most famous antagonists. Honestly, once this game was announced, I knew these 2 had to be in it. Red Boy was particularly insidious in that once he heard through the grapevine about Tang Sanzang's journey, he intentionally waited in a mountain along the route so that when the monk finally passed by, Red Boy could capture and devour him, believing the monk's purity would make him immortal. When that day finally came, he tried to deceive the travelers by taking the form of a nude 7-year-old boy hanging from a tree calling for help. Wukong was suspicious and advised against helping the child, but the boy wouldn't let up, and eventually Tang Sanzang went against Wukong's advice. The boy told a false sob story which Wukong saw right through, but still Tang didn't listen and ordered Wukong to carry the boy so they could get him to safety. And then Red Boy attacked. He magically summoned a heavy weight on Wukong's back, then summoned a wind to distract the others, grabbed Tang Sanzang and flew away. Wukong gets so angry about not being listened to, and rightfully so, that he almost gives up on the whole journey, but soon changes his mind. He asks the local spirits where to find the Red Boy, and the spirits are happy to tell him because the boy apparently harasses and annoys them constantly. They tell Wukong the boy's name, location, and the fact that he's actually the son of Wukong's former friend, Bull Demon. Also, the boy apparently gained mastery of Samadhi Fire due to spending 300 years in the Blazing Flame Mountain. When Wukong and Zubaji arrived at Red Boy's lair, Red Boy ordered his minions to fetch his lance and prepare his 5 special carts. These carts corresponded to the 5 Chinese elements: metal, wood, fire, water, and earth. At first, Wukong tried to appeal to Red Boy by telling him about his brotherhood with Bull Demon, but it didn't work. Red Boy attacked, and after an intense battle it became clear that Red Boy was losing, so he retreated to his carts, which highly enhanced his fire powers and created so much smoke that Wukong could no longer see. Plus, he had a little bit of PTSD due to a certain brazier he'd been in, which we'll talk about later. Wukong decided the best way to counter this was to travel all the way to the Palace of the Eastern Sea and request that the Dragon King Ao Guang create a rainstorm. Soon Wukong returned with all 4 Dragon Kings, and when Red Boy summoned the fire again, the dragons summoned a ton of rain, but surprisingly it didn't work. The Samadhi fire was too powerful to be put out that way. Wukong then told Zubashi to ask for Guan Yin's help, but then Red Boy, literally just by seeing which direction Zubashi was headed, deduced exactly where he was going and who he was going to. So he went up into the clouds and disguised himself as Guan Yin. Zubashi took the bait, and Red Boy successfully lured him back to his cave and imprisoned him inside a bag. Oh, not this again. When Zubashi did not return, Wukong infiltrated the cave in the form of a fly and learned what happened. He also learned that Red Boy had 6 elite commanders named Cloud and Fog, Fogging Cloud, Quick as Fire, Swift as Wind, Hurly Burly, and Burly Hurly. Nice names there. All of these commanders appear as double boss fights throughout Chapter 5. Red Boy instructed his commanders to invite his father, Bull Demon, to come and dine on Tang San Zang with him. Seeing an opportunity, Wukong went down the road and transformed himself into Bull Demon, easily deceiving the commanders and then attempting to deceive Red Boy. But the ruse failed when Red Boy asked him to recite the exact date of his birth. At this point, Wukong decided to just go talk to Guan Yin himself, and the goddess was not happy to hear that Red Boy had been impersonating her, so she then proceeded to fill a vase with a literal ocean's worth of water, and thankfully that was enough to put out the Samadhi fire. She then had one of her servants beat Red Boy until he begged for mercy, though once she stopped, he immediately tried to attack her, only to be humbled when Guan Yin threw not 1, but 5 constricting bands onto his body, subduing his head, arms, and legs. She then brought him back to become her disciple, forcing him to bow literally every step of the way. Later in the journey, the group encounters a literal flaming mountain, and the only way to get past it is to use the power of an item known as the Palm Leaf Fan to put out the fire. Problem is, the fan is owned by Princess Iron Fan, also called Rakshasi, who happens to be the wife of Bull Demon and mother of Red Boy, and she wasn't happy about what happened to her son. So when Wukong asked to borrow her fan, she challenged him to a fight that ended with her using the fan to blow him very far away. After trying some other stuff that didn't work, Wukong would encounter a man known as the Spirit or Keeper of the Mountain. Wukong asked the Keeper how the mountain was set ablaze in the first place, and the Keeper revealed that it was actually because of Wukong. You see, after Wukong was originally captured by Erlang Shen all those years ago, the Heavenly Court tried everything they could think of to execute him, but nothing was working. At one point, the legendary philosopher Lao Tzu suggested they try putting him in the brazier of 8 trigrams in an attempt to burn his immortality away. After throwing him in, Lao Tzu instructed a Taoist and a young boy to keep the flame strong, and Wukong was left in that brazier for 49 days. However, the brazier only made Wukong even stronger, and also reddened his eyes, thus giving him that truth-seeing ability I mentioned earlier. When the 49 days were up, Wukong leapt from the brazier and kicked it over. And that action resulted in the fires from the brazier falling from the heavens and landing on this mountain, which ignited it. In this game's lore, the embers also spawned that Mother of Flamelings boss. The Taoist was blamed for what happened, and he was reassigned as the Keeper of the Mountain. The Keeper then told them that Bull Demon had left Rakshasi and was now with a fox woman named Princess Jade Countenance. Wukong went to try to appeal to the bull this time, but he wasn't happy either, and another fight broke out. The fight lasted an extremely long time until the Bull Demon literally received an invitation to a banquet in the middle of the fight and accepted. So he mounted his personal steed, known as the water-repellent golden-eyed beast, and left. And yeah, this is the same beast that we fight in this chapter's secret area. Soon after, Wukong had an idea and returned to Rakshasi, this time disguised as Bull Demon. Rakshasi must have really missed him because she welcomes him with open arms. She then gets really drunk and affectionate with him, making it pretty easy for Wukong to convince her to give him the fan, and once she does, he reveals his true form, which makes her very depressed. When Bull Demon learns what happened, he turns himself into Zubashi and tricks Wukong into giving the fan back to him, and that's when the heroes mount a full assault on Bull Demon's home. The battle gets so intense that Bull Demon reverts to his true form, a gigantic white bull over 10,000 feet long, which is also the form he's in when we encounter him in-game. In response, Sun Wukong also becomes gigantic, and several gods take notice and join the fight as well. Soon the bull demon can't even retreat, because everywhere he goes there are more deities noticing and attacking him. Zubaji also reveals at one point that he killed Princess Jade Countenance during the battle.
He's basically saying we don't have a choice.
Concubine with a whack of my red screw. Turned out, she was a fox squire.
Eventually, the god Nezha decapitates the bull, only for him to grow a new head instantly somehow. Nezha repeats this process several times before switching strategies and instead using his signature fire wheel to burn the bull into submission. It culminates with the gods all tying the bull down and trading his life in exchange for the fan. One thing I really like about Chapter 5 is the enemies have a bit of an Indian look to them, which is fitting because the destination of the journey to the west was actually in India. Plus, Rakshasi is a word with Indian origins, and the novel includes yakshas, which are also of Indian origin. Red Boy's heritage has been changed a bit, with the identity of his father being different, but his character is spot on, especially considering the way a certain fox character is introduced. Speaking of which, the game adds a daughter that Bull Demon had with Jade Princess, which I think is interesting. Red Boy's carts also appear as bosses, each with different colors to symbolize the different elements, and of course, the palm leaf fan is a usable item, which is so much fun. Since many of the bosses in Chapter 6 are actually manifestations of Wukong's armor, I guess I'll just tell you how he got that armor. Early in Wukong's life, he decided he needed a weapon, and only the best would do, so he went to the Dragon King of the Eastern Sea, who was known for having really great divine weapons. The dragon offered him all kinds, but they all felt too light and weak, so as a last resort, the dragon offered him an enormous pillar from the palace that weighed thousands of pounds. The pillar shrank down in Wukong's hands, but maintained its weight, making it an insanely powerful weapon. Wukong then asked for matching armor, so the Dragon King summoned his brothers, who provided him with a pair of lotus cloud-treading shoes, a cuirass of golden chainmail, and a cap with phoenix plumes. Yeah, the bracers aren't really mentioned in the novel. There's also a Xiaolong side boss here. Xiaolong refers to Chinese dragons that are hornless and live in aquatic areas, which matches up with what we see here. There's also a side plot going on where this character is trying to resurrect Wukong by collecting 5 skandhas. Skandhas in Chinese culture are the attributes that make up a person's identity: form, feeling, perception, mental formation, and consciousness. The giant Shigandang apparently came from pieces of the very stone Wukong was born from. As for who this monkey is, well, considering she's a mandrill, my money says she's the red-bottomed monkey, one of the 4 monkey kings that include Wukong. Wukong's title among them is the Stone Monkey. And speaking of the Stone Monkey, the final boss of the game is a clear reference to how Sun Wukong came to be. A divine stone that had existed since the beginning of time suddenly hatched one day and a monkey emerged. He then looked up to the heavens and accidentally shot laser beams from his eyes. The rest, we've already covered in some way. The final boss is an empty shell of what remains of the Monkey King, and thus has reverted to his original stone being. The only missed opportunity here? He should have had a laser beam attack. Finally, it's time to finish by covering the secret ending bosses. We've already covered Erlang Shen, so the 4 Heavenly Kings. Nearly every Asian culture has a variation of these 4 kings, but we'll be focusing on the Chinese versions here. The kings each have dominion over a cardinal direction. Duo Wen is the north, and his symbol is an umbrella, which we kill him with. Guangmu is the west, and his symbol is a snake, or dragon in this case, which we kill him with. Qi Guo is the east, and his symbol is a pipa instrument, which we kill him with. And Zhang Zong is the south. His symbol is a sword, so naturally we kill him with a shield. Makes sense to me. And I think that about covers everything. Like I said, there's also some original characters in the game, but hopefully this video will help you to understand what's going on a lot better as you play through. And if you've already played through, hopefully it'll give you some cool stuff to reflect on. It really is impressive just how many details from the novel made it into this. Of course, there's small liberties taken here and there, and there's nothing wrong with that, but I honestly think this is, in fact, the most mythically accurate video game I've ever encountered, and that definitely deserves to be commended.